So I was thinking about this, and I want to start off with a couple preliminaries, though, because one of the reasons, not certainly not the Astros, they're a great baseball team in all areas. So good that they were able to kind of dodge all this randomness this year, at least this year, that sort of knocks off some really good teams. For example, the Braves, the Dodgers, and the Mets this year. But I harp about this, and I'll do it one more time, and I'm not going to go nuts and start screaming, so I'll try to tone down my obnoxious ways on this. But, we talk about postseason randomness all the time. And this is nothing that I'm doing in an attempt to sort of justify the fact the Cardinals lose in the postseason now all the time, because I'm not. And if you listen to me, you know that I've done a lot of truth telling on that front. It's just that I avoid the lazy narrative, the first thing most people grab. It's all the hitting coach. It's like there's a million factors. But anyway, here's a stat that tells you all you need to know about postseason randomness. And I feel kind of dumb because I didn't cultivate this stat earlier to prove my point, or to make a point, actually. Since the wild card era, which started in the 1995 postseason, all right, since 1995, there have been 36 teams that have won 100 games during the regular season. 36 teams during the wild card area, 36 teams have won 100 games or more during the regular season. Only 5 of the 36 have won the World Series. 5 of 36. Keep that in mind. 5 of 36. Over the same exact time frame, starting in 1995, teams that have bagged between 83 and 92 victories during the regular season have won the World Series 12 times, including your 2006 Cardinals, who during this era had the fewest regular season victories of any team that went on to win the World Series. So that sums it up. I do accept the fact that we live now in, modern America, probably the entire world, where no one retains anything. It's all about what happened 10 minutes ago. Anything that you didn't see on Instagram within a half an hour has been filed away, embedded into history, and you can't remember it. Even if your health depended on it, you wouldn't remember it. Well, that happened. Oh, that's a half hour ago. Oh, I don't pay attention. That was half hour ago. Yeah. So we go through this thing every year about, now it's the format, right? Now it's the format. Well, see, these teams can't survive. The best teams can't survive, It's not fair. What are you talking about? There's only 5 of 36 teams that won 100 games and won the World Series, and teams that have won 83, between 83 and 92 have won 12. Some of y'all still think that this is something new, that the Dodgers would lose and get knocked off, or that the Mets would lose, the Braves would lose. You remember how the Braves won last year? What'd they have, 87, 88 regular season wins? They made some changes, they added some people, and away they go. Caught fire at the right time, and a lot of it has to do with that. Phillies got on a roll by beating the Cardinals. That game 1 changed everything. But they took that opportunity, that gift from the Cardinals, and they ran with it. And now they believe they can conquer the world, So great teams, regular season teams, have been getting knocked off left and right since baseball went to the wild card in 1995. And there have been multiple tweaks to the system, but the same thing continues to happen. No matter how many wild cards you have in there, the big boys have been taking it on the chin. And other teams, again, that have won between 83 and 92 games in the regular season, they continue to kind of slide right in there and go on up there and steal a World Series. And more power to them. So I just, and this does explain at least partially, key word there being partially, this does explain some of the futility the Cardinals have had in the postseason going back to the 2014 NLCS. That's when it started. They lost the final 3 games of that series at San Francisco. And since that time, well, including that time, that's where it began. They're 5-17 in the last 22 postseason games. Part of this is just October randomness. And it does exist, and it is real. And I don't know why there are so many deniers about this. You got to disconnect regular season from postseason because we see it every year repeatedly. And so I wanted to just, because I got to tell you, Jim Hewer, I was like surprised by my research. I mean, I hadn't realized, look, I know a lot of teams that aren't considered the brightest lights of baseball have won World Series. Like there's been 4 wild card teams win a World Series. There's been a bunch of them that have made it. But teams that bag between 83 and 92 wins during the regular season, 12 of those teams have won the World Series, and the 100-win teams have won 5, 12-5. And yet, it's like, well, the Cardinals, they won the division, and they won 93 games. Oh, the Dodgers won 111. That's just format. Well, nobody said that about the Cardinals because people watched that game, knew they blew that series in the 9th inning of Game 1 when the manager failed to respond to the disaster that was happening in front of them. But the Major League postseason, anything goes, man. I actually think that's good. I actually think it makes it fun because the team you expect to win, they win all the time. I mean, it's still fun to watch greatness. It's still fun to watch a championship competition, but it's not all that entertaining. I mean, the so-called surprise teams, and I would argue by now, there really are no surprise teams. There might be betting underdogs, but are they really a surprise? Philly's got a lot of talent, man. They got 2 top starters, maybe even 3 top starters. I mean, they got a really good lineup from top to bottom. They got guys who play with edge. Their bullpen's gotten better. Good manager now. I mean, they're not. It's not like this is dog meat. They're good. They got hot at a really good time. That like I said, that Game 1 win did everything for them. It's almost like a different team. So, but I was surprised, Jim. I'm sorry that I just kept going there.
Fine.
That all the teams ranging from 83 to 92 wins have won 12 World Series since 1995, and the very best teams have won only 5. So that's crazy. It's just crazy, but that's the reality, and I don't know why people won't accept it.
I'm there with you. Look, as far as the Philly thing goes this year, you bring it up, and I really just want to just lay it out there. For me, it's like the 9th inning opened the door for the Phillies, and they just burst through and said, here we are.
Yep.
We're fine. And, oh, by the way, we got a roster of some really good players over here. We talked about Harper being, the true superstar during these playoffs. We got 2 really good starting pitchers that can get us through some issues. I thought it was interesting in continuing our talk about the Phillies. Thompson, I thought it was a bold move to go, hey, Ranger Suarez, can you get us an out here? When that's not his role, but he found a way. He got the out, right? The last out of the game.
Sure did.
He's got to get credit for that. He's got to say, you know what? The manager recognized that as a possibility, and that helped them win that ball game last night. That has to be part of it. It's, hey, give credit to the manager. Whereas in the Cardinal thing, it went, the manager kind of missed the boat on that one. And you can't give away a game in a 3-game series. You don't recover from that part of the situation. And sometimes, in the case of the Yankees Astros game last night, Bernie, sometimes the other team makes an error. And when you make an error in a game, and a good team will beat you every time in the playoffs. And I'm referencing the missed double play ball that the Yankees had in their inning last night, where as soon as that ball got away, it went, oh, yeah, that's going to be a problem for them moving forward. That you don't recover from moments like that. And you just have to, you can say the randomness of the game, but sometimes team will make a mistake, and the good teams, and if you make the playoffs, you are a good team. You burst through and you take advantage of opportunity, and then you never look back. That's what the Phillies have done based on what took place that Friday at Busch Stadium in the 9th inning. They have just said, we got this, we're fine. We got a lot of good baseball players on this team, and we're not afraid of any of our opponents, and that's important.
It really is, and it is about being opportunistic. That's a huge part of it. But I wanted to, I kind of set this segment up to talk about, is there anything, tangible that the Cardinals can learn? And some of it is stuff that we talk about all the time, but this postseason has only reinforced it. First of all, you got to spend money on talent to give yourself at least a better chance in the postseason. The Phillies ranked 5th this season in the 26-man payroll and the 40-man. They ranked 5th. The Astros were 10th in both categories. The Cardinals were 13th in both categories. So the Cardinals spent $74 million less on talent than the Phillies did this year, and $24 million less than the Astros, which surprises me. But I know the Astros, they let Correa go. They had young guys they could plug in, so that explains that. Mm-hmm. Tucker, when they let George Springer walk, that kind of thing.
Yep.
And as I mentioned earlier, and I can say it a million times, I mean, nothing is guaranteed, and I'm well aware of that. As the Yankees have shown us, outspending the other teams does not come with a World Series parade. You spend $200 million. Here's a complimentary World Series parade. It doesn't work that way. They've invested, as I mentioned earlier in the show, they haven't been in the World Series since 2009 or won a World Series since 2009. And since 2010, I went to Cots Baseball Contracts and just added up these yearly salary figures. The Yankees have invested just under $3 billion in player payroll, and they haven't even been to a World Series. So, again, this is not a thing where you just spend just to spend. Like Brian Cashman making that idiotic move to where they had to take on Josh Donaldson's salary. Made no sense. Just absolutely nuts. And if I'm Hal Steinbrenner, you got to wonder what are we doing here? The more I spend, the more we go belly up in the postseason. So anyway, nothing is guaranteed. But what if the Cardinals were more ambitious and stretched their payroll to strengthen the weaker areas of the team, just for the purpose of taking a more complete and robust roster into the playoffs? Well, no guarantees, but I would like their chances of doing a hell of a lot better than losing 9 out of their last 10 and also, losing 17 of their last 22. I would actually believe that they would at least have they would at least have more to take to the dance. And then it's a matter of whether you have guys who step up or they don't. But if the front office closes some of the weaknesses in this roster, and they start to adapt and build a team that is more likely to have postseason success or not going in with so many flaws. Well, it's up to the players at that point. And I know in our town we never want to blame the players for anything, unless it's the one guy that everybody picks on all the time. But it's up to the front office, I think, to try to build a more robust roster, and then you'll have a better chance. You may not get there, but again, at some point, you got to turn it over to the players, and then they got to perform. But you can do more to help them, that's for sure. So if they increase the payroll, they have the revenue and the resources to increase the commitment to payroll, and it also would show that they're willing to increase their commitment to winning. Number 2, and again, this is stuff I've talked about a lot, but it's truer now than ever, and I'll give you a stat that'll make you go, you got to be kidding. No, I'm not kidding. The Cardinals need to find more home run hitters. This is very, very important. The old school baseball media and fans, as I joke about all the time, still have fits over the prominence of home runs. Regular season, but postseason especially. These are the people that pray. Maybe they go to church to pray. They light a candle. I don't know. For the return of Wee Willie Keeler baseball. Slap a little single. Drop that bunt. Hit that chopper and run. Run fast. Get it in field, hit it, Now, that stuff can win a game, maybe a few games in a long postseason run with bloop singles and good luck ground balls. But as we mentioned a million times, these things aren't done by design. I mean, what batter goes to home plate and says, all right, here's my strategy. I'm going to hit one off the end of my bat, and it's going to look like a dying quail, but it's going to land out there in shallow right center where no one can get to it. Yeah, that's what I'm going to do. Nobody says that. No one has ever said that. Yeah, it's important to make contact, but I like all these old schoolers. They actually think this is a strategy or something. It's not.
No.
You know, if you can hit balls that'll find holes in a regular basis, you can go on little flurries like that. Sure, I'm not saying it never happens, but let me give you two stats here, and they're pretty simple. Teams that have out-homered opponents in a game in this postseason are 15-5. Last season, when a team out-homered their opponent in a postseason game, 25-2. So,
wow.
Over the last two postseasons, as we go into the World Series starting Friday, over the last two postseasons, in a postseason game, the team that has out-homered its opponent has a record of 40-7. 40-7, he said. So you're the Cardinals, and you had a chance to sign Kyle Schwarber. I got off of it because I knew they weren't, but I know Ben Hockman wrote about this in the offseason, and I was all fired up about Schwarber. I always get sort of demoralized though, because when I realize it's just they're not going to do it, I'm just kind of like, you know what? I'm just not going to sit here and bang my head on the desk every day. They're not going to do it. I'm going to move on. All right, what will they do? But Kyle Schwarber as a DH against right-handed pitchers, wow. And the Cardinals have gone cheap. You know, he had 46 home runs this year. He gets on base a lot with walks. He doesn't have a batting average. I could care less about that. He's a really reliable guy as far as the power game, you know. And he's got 12 home runs now in his postseason career, 12. He's got 3 in 11 games this year, including 3 in his last 5, to help carry the Phillies past the Padres. In his postseason career, Kyle Schwarber has hit a home run every 12 at-bats. That's the average. Homers every 12 at-bats. And as I joked much earlier in the show, well, why would you want that when a much cheaper Corey Dickerson is available? So this is what I mean when I talk about the Cardinals need to extend their commitment financially and otherwise. They're not a weak home run hitting team. They finished 9th in baseball this year in home runs, but they need more muscle. And a plan, let me say this on behalf of Jim Hewer and everybody else. If the plan includes this, we're confident that Tyler O'Neill will stay healthy in 2023. Well, that's wacko. That's wacko. And Nolan Gorman can boost this area by getting through his early career swing and miss problems. Juan Yepez has got some obvious potential to hit plenty of homers. But the Cardinals are losing 24 homers. No one expected that. 24 homers put in by Albert Pujols this year, and that's a problem. So they shouldn't be so wishy-washy about looking for power. Over the past 2 seasons, when the Cardinals hit 2 home runs or more in a game, they're 96-21. And when they don't hit at least 2 home runs in a game, instead of being 96-21, they're 87-120. This is the era of the Powerball, whether we like it or not. It is what it is. They have got to muscle up and add more home run capability. And in one of the openings or 2 of the openings that they figure to have, that's a good time to address it. That's a good spot to address it. You cannot be in denial about this. Are you kidding me? The teams that have hit the most home runs in a game are 40-7 in the postseason, the last 2 postseasons. 40-7.
That's crazy.
Yeah. But you still got people in denial. Remember the guy that texted us? The guy that texted us when I was talking about this much earlier in the postseason, and he's like, well, Bernie, you don't talk about the fact that the Phillies, they're not hitting home runs, and they've won. Number one, no one has ever said that it's impossible to win a game or 2 or 3 or whatever along off postseason. It's not impossible to win a game that way. But I also said in response to that, it's like, let's talk as the postseason moves on. Let's talk later. I would say the Phillies have won some games with home runs. That's just me now. You know,
they won the game in San Diego with the 2 homers, in the 2-0 shutout. And then what won in the game last night? Harper's 2-run homer in the 8th.
Yeah, they have been pretty remarkable with that. The Phillies were. I'm trying to think. Anyway, never mind. I want to search for stats. I made my
that's
point.
fine. But there's other ways to come up with a run or two. But it's always go look at these games. Turning points are the home run ball. Pena's home run, I mentioned it last night. Different game, a different team, but his 3-run homer changed the complexion of the game. It was like, oh, hey, I think bang, they're back in this thing.
And you need timely hitting. When you have runners on scoring position, you got to come through.
Yes.
And that's when your doubles and your hard hit singles or bloops, anything to get of that runner in from second or third base. So, there's always a place in baseball. You got to make contact. You got to shorten up. You got to get the ball in play. You can't strike out here. This is your chance to get that runner in from third or second. I just want to hit a line drive somewhere. I just want to make sure I get that ball in play. Maybe pull it. I got some room over here, some room over there. Yeah, there's always room for non-home run skill in this game, but that's not the foundation for success, not in the postseason. All right, number 3, power pitching rules. We're staying with this. I mean, during the regular season, the Houston starters were 3rd in the majors in strikeout rate. Philly was 12th. St. Louis starters were 24th. There's more glaring in the bullpens. Houston relievers had the best strikeout rate, 28% in the majors. Philadelphia's bullpen was its 9th in strikeout rate. The Cardinals' bullpen was 27th. And yet, I'm telling you, Marmol and Mozeliak would insist that, no. We got strikeout guys in the bullpen. You do? Oh, yeah, a couple maybe. You're 27th in the big leagues this year. Strikeouts from your bullpen, 27th out of 30. The St. Louis front office has had years and years to build an extensive set of relievers that can dominate hitters with the swings and the misses and the strikeouts. But they continue to fail to modernize their bullpen to fit today's game. In the 2022 regular season, Houston, in terms of the contact rate against their bullpen, number 1 in the major leagues, only 70%. Philadelphia 5th, 73%. St. Louis 26th at 77%. How about this? When opposing hitters swing at strikes or pitches in the strike zone, the Cardinals relievers gave up a contact rate of 85.6% on pitches in the strike zone. That was the 4th worst rate in the bigs on contact rate on strikes. 4th highest, 4th worst in the bigs, right? But let's go. Hey, listen, whatever we do this year, got to make sure we find another Nick Whitgren or Drew Verhagen, right? We don't need no damn strikeout pitchers. Oh, yes, you do. If you want to win in the postseason. Yes, you do, sir. I've talked about this, and we're running a little low on time. We can get back to this. I'm going to give the short one first. Cardinals should be a lot more aggressive in pursuing the elite level international talent. They look for the bargains. Some of the bargains have paid off. Don't get me wrong. But if you take a look around their club now, well, where is it? Where's the international presence that's paying off for them right now, right? I don't see much. There's some. I don't see much. The Astros have been very bold and successful in this area. They're not reluctant to spend the dollars to get the better international players. Guys on their roster right now, there were international signings, include Jose Altuve, Yuri Gurriel, pitchers Framber Valdez, Christian Javier, Brian Abreu, Luis Garcia, and Jose Urquidy. And when the Dodgers outbid Houston for this fearsome, powerful young player named Yordan Alvarez, the Astros didn't give up. They stayed on it, and they traded for Alvarez back in 2016. In his 3 full seasons, Alvarez has averaged 32 homers, 93 RBIs, and slugged .590. What do the Cardinals have to show for their recent forays into international markets? Just look it up. It ain't much.
No.
The other thing, too, and I'll be quick on this, although this is the fun part, but we talked about it earlier, and you're going to have to pardon my language, But when I'm going to make my point, you got to use the point that everybody in baseball would say. So pardon my language, but the Cardinals need a badass. They have all these nice guys. They, members. You could have a club of the polite society down there. I'd actually like to see someone who's got an attitude and an edge and who can embolden his teammates and give them more confidence by stepping up and getting bigger in the tough spots in the postseason rather than going smaller. And the Cardinals have had a lot of guys get smaller when the spotlight is shining the brightest in the postseason. Again, I talked about it earlier. The Cardinals had their chance with Bryce Harper. I'm not saying this in retrospect. Anyone who listened to my old radio show knows that, no pun intended, I harped on this almost every day. He would have been a bargain at that price because not only is he a winning player for the Phillies and a guy that has changed that whole collective team personality and a guy who is fearless and fierce in the biggest games, the Cardinals still don't have an outfield. I mean, Harper signed before the 2009 season with the 2019 season with the Phillies. And the Cardinals are still trying to figure out who their outfield's going to be. I mean, it's kind of pathetic, ain't it?
Very much so.
So he was never going to come here because Harper was A, really expensive, B, really cocky. We can't have cocky guys down here. Ownership wants to maintain a reasonable cost payroll, and this audacious, brazen Harper might be too much to handle for all the polite society guys that they have in that clubhouse. They don't go in for all that flamboyant stuff. Let's be gentlemen, and we're going to lose. We must lose as gentlemen. I mean, the insanity involved here is just crazy. So, as Rob Thompson said, Harper's proved to me over and over and over again, there's no moment too big for him. And it's absolutely true. And you know what happened in this series, and every time he's been in the postseason, he makes things happen. So, I'd like to see him get that bad guy. When I say bad guy, I mean like, oh, that's a bad man right there. Did you see that home run? Did you see him just break San Diego apart? That's what I mean about a badass. They don't have one. I'm sorry. They have talented players. They need to add some spice, and I mean some big-time spice to that mix. Because they're too easygoing, they're too friendly, they're too polite. These are not character flaws. But when you're competing to win a world championship and you are in the most important pressure-packed games of the year, you better have some guys in there that unabashedly say, they even announce it in advance. It's like, well, this is my time. This is what I'm here for. Let's put on a show. Watch this. The Cardinals don't have one player like that. So that's got to change. It's got to change.
Need to go find a few. In fact, we got a couple texts on the text line just said, go get a bat. That's what we learned. Go get a bat. That's more than a couple texts.
Power bat.
Yep. That's
specifically a power bat.
Yep.
We don't need Wee Willie Killer. I know a lot of people would like to see that. Look him up, by the way. Google him if you don't know who the hell I'm talking about.